Terrell, Texas.
Terrell, Texas is
Yeah, I have a friend of mine, actually American. He had a ranch in Weatherford, and he just bought a ranch in Terrell, Texas. Terrell is, which is basically like,
Yeah.
let's say you're in Arlington, Texas.
Yeah,
You take 20 east and go maybe about 40 minutes,
right,
and that's where it is.
right. So Terrell, Mesquite to Terrell belt, the
Yes.
Forney grew quite a bit. I mean, just like
Yes.
Selena,
Yes.
but it was a little bit economically weaker section kind of communities over there.
Mm.
When the growth happened, a lot of people through the mid growth avoided economically weaker areas. But when growth happened, it happened so fast, it covered all of that and started growing beyond that. People started looking beyond school districts, and when new homes came up, school districts improved. If you look at, maybe if you go north of Pilot Point, you will hit cities like Whitesboro, South Made, all the way to Sherman. Going there versus going to Terrell, right? You make a judgment call. Terrell is closer to city. It's also connected to downtown. Downtown still has value. It's not that it has lost its value. It's not the primary destination right now. So yes, Terrell is gonna grow, is growing, has grown actually. When when these areas grew from say 30,000 to 150,000, Terrell was at 10,000. It grew to 50,000. So at some point, Terrell was 15,000. This thing was 100,000. People said, okay, why not go to Terrell?
What was the other city name you said was instead of Terrell? Other option for the investment between Terrell and
Sherman.
Sherman.
Forney. Sherman is to the
Forney,
north of
Forney.
yeah, Forney.
Forney? Forney or
Yeah.
Forney?
Forney.
Yeah.
Forney, right?
Anyone.
Forney, yeah.
I have one question. You were saying that on one of the other maps, you were showing that a lot of the offices are new office buildings are getting built. What has I mean, I've read some articles where a lot of downtowns in the US haven't recovered from the whole remote, you know, shift during COVID. So are people returning to offices? Are offices getting built now more? Are those offices getting built away from downtown?
Right. Very good question. Offices are under stress, especially the older, outdated, maybe 30, 40-year-old buildings. Since COVID, we have a lot
Yeah,
of.
hybrid model has created a chaos in the whole US.
Right, right.
And as soon as this Biden free giveaway money and student loan, all those will go away, next year it will explode. It will be in absolute chaos because the people not going to be able to pay their mortgages on the highway towers and all of those things, and the foreclosing will come into the surface.
Yeah, we'll see. Next year is going to be interesting, but as far as offices are concerned, they are under stress. I think the older office buildings won't come back. They will repurpose it to whatever they can. But the newer areas in Dallas, if you go to maybe downtown, even Irving, some of the offices here in Las Colinas, they may look good. And offices trade when an office is fully occupied, it is looked up as a business value, right? What it is returning in rentals, that's how you drive the value, how long you have the leases on it. But if your office is empty, right, a big tenant is leaving, value drops drastically. And if you cannot fill it up, then there is no value in it. Now the value, then what it sells for is something called replacement value, right? If you today take a new piece of land, put an office on it, and it costs you $300 a foot. Some of these offices may sell for $50, $60 a foot. So 1/3 of the replacement value. But is it attractive, right? Do you go into this? Wow, if I build this new, it's $300. Shall I go for $60? You can burn your hands if you don't know what you're doing. That said, there is an interesting thing that's happening in Dallas. While the older areas are under stress, Addison to Prosper and Selena, they're growing in rentals. So the new places, the hip places, the places that are contemporary, attracting new talent, The new offices, eventually people are gonna get back to office. Whatever that need is, some of these areas are gonna do well, whereas the other areas will struggle in office space. So need to know more case by case basis. You really have to be in it, understanding everything that's going on by the week, by the month, to make a decision on this.
Yeah, I can give you prime example on this 183 on Irving. A lot of Desi people had bought buildings and shopping strip, and because of the lack of research and the information and knowing what you're talking about, you've mentioned so many times, they were bulldozed because they expanded the highway.
Right.
So these people, some of these people were millionaire, overnight they become poor because the bulldoze basically. And same thing happened with the Cowboy Stadium when they built the Cowboy Stadium in Arlington. A lot of my friends and people that I know, they were owning a lot of commercial property, and they were basically were let go because they had to expand the stuff. So I'll let you run.
Yeah,
the
right,
show.
right. See, gas stations were a good business before racetracks and quick trips
Right.
show up.
Yes.
And once a racetrack shows up, from 2 to 3 miles, all the gas stations that were out there lost a lot of value. So we have to be aware of, why someone is selling. The people who own it, they know what's coming. They are aware of it because they are vested in it. The new people who are going in, they're seeing the numbers of last year and thinking it's gonna repeat. Future is not, past is not the future, so you have to know that.
Good question. So it is all research based, I can see. So what resources do you use? Do you read a lot about the city, what's going on, or is it more about the foot on the ground?
All of it, right? Tools, city, people, investors, realtors, wealth companies, syndicates, brokers. You really start getting information from all of them. There is no one source
Yeah,
to this.
and I usually go because I've been here for so many years in connections and networking. I go talk to the city before we put the money into the city or any investments.
Right.
We talk to the mayor, and then talking with the mayor is depending on what relationship you have with them. They will open up and say, yeah, we're gonna do this in this area, we're gonna do this or that. or
Yeah,
something.
city is a good place to know what's coming up in the future. Investors, syndicates, groups who are active, they are a good place to know where they are investing. Brokers, you get information from everywhere, reading, and it adds up quickly to give you enough perspective to understand what's going on. All right, so we will actually, I had all of those marked up to talk at some point, but I took those questions. When we get there, it will be a little easier when I repeat it. We think of land, when we buy the land, as I told, there's a 50-acre piece of parcel. A land on one side of the road versus other side of the road can be a difference in value by 50 to 100%, just because there may be some access of utilities on this side and not on this side, right? Before you buy the land, there is something called due diligence. So buying a land, especially, not the residential homes, it's usually very fixed in what you need to research. You get a month to close the property, you get 1 week to say yes or no. But in lands, typically, when the real estate was in its normal phase, you get 90 days to do the feasibility, where you go in and find out from the city what's going on, are there any roads there, utilities when they are coming, any projects coming around, will you approve my plan? That is if you have an immediate project. Of course, there is a raw land that you buy at a price that you don't consider anything as long as the price is good, right? So a land you bought for 10,000, when the market is 13, 14,000, you cannot go and say, okay, I want this utilities and all, looking at a land that you're looking at immediately developing it, right? So it's different, how you approach, what you research, how you see the value. And just because I said, okay, you need utilities to have value, does not mean I have a land without utilities and valued at that, people start asking, oh, what about utilities on this, right? So it's not the same thing. You need to ask the right questions, you need to know. To invest, you need to know reasonable enough to ask the right questions, or you will always be lost. So missing a good investment just because you don't know is just as bad as investing in an investment which is bad and you don't know about it. So anyway, talking about land, the land value transitions from various improvements that are coming towards it. Utilities, yes, sewer, water, Electric is almost everywhere in America. Water, easier to bring, but sometimes if you're 2-3 miles away, it could cost you 600,000-700,000 to bring. So generally people get together, pool in to bring water, because bringing water adds value to the land. Then utilities is also about capacity. I mean, if I go and say, oh, Imtiaz told me to find out if there is sewer here, you go there and say there is sewer, right? But then you need to know, do we have enough capacity for that? From utilities to zoning. A land can be zoned in many different ways. Zoning typically applies in cities and city jurisdiction. I'll talk a little bit about jurisdictions later. But an appropriate zoning can change the land value quite a bit. So if you have a land zoned single family and you think you can go to the city and get multifamily approved on it, you're talking about land value transitioning quite a bit, maybe 100 to 150% just by changing its purpose to something that is more valuable. Entitlement, typically when you have utilities, you have proper zoning, then you go to city and say, okay, this is my plan, this is what I am doing. And when I say you go to city, you hire an engineering firm, they do this for you. They put their plans, they do all the engineering, do all the technical stuff, take it to the city, they will verify if everything is there, and they will say, fine, on this land you can put 300 apartments, or on this land I'm okay, you're putting this 200 homes, right? Once the land is entitled, typically it sells for the entitled value. So if I have a land 60,000 an acre, it got entitled to 4 lots per acre, then you can sell that at 30,000 per paper lot. So you have doubled the value. Now coming to the point where somebody is buying a land without zoning and selling it as entitled land, just to people who are unaware, they're trying to drive 2 times the value just because there is an information gap. Once you have it entitled, then this is very capital intensive. When you develop a land, it is about maybe 50 to 60,000 per lot if it's a typical parkside kind of lot. And developing adds value to about 30 to 40% of entitled land plus development cost, and they are sold at maybe 30 to 40% more. So there is another 30-40% realization. There could be a 50 to 100% realization, and then the finished product. Once it's developed, it's ready, you can go take the permits, you can either put a home or put something commercial on it. You have a ready-made finished product. You cannot take a land not knowing what the utilities are and sell it as a finished product and say, hey, I'm going to have townhomes here, I'm going to have this hotel here, and I'm going to take partnership. Typically, a good investment or a lead who is doing the investment, who is responsible with money, takes in investment and partnerships at the maturity of the property that he is in. Right? A lot of people go in not knowing this, and they end up paying those prices. Oh, I saw the home there, it's 500,000, we are going to make 500 homes here, it's a 2.5 billion project. Wow, I am getting in at this price. No, don't do that. There is a lot of risk involved with that. And the finished product, and if you do it right, there is money in everything. There are a lot of people who get in and buy a land, do the zoning, entitle and sell. That's also real estate investment. We think of real estate investments as buying a single family rental, flipping a single family rental, going and buying a commercial strip, getting rentals, buying a land, holding. No. Any of these phases, when you take a property and have understanding and you can transition your land into any of these phases, that's a real estate investment. And a lot of times, better real estate investment than the final product.
So the question is, when you say do the zoning, what does that mean? Let's suppose you find a ranch, and in front of that ranch, there are residential buildings. Do you feel like you will be investing in that land, thinking that it will be converting into a residential zoning?
Right, quite a few things there. Zoning applies to lands within cities' jurisdiction. So when the cities grow, they annex properties where they feel they can provide utilities to. They may not have utilities there, but they annex with a guarantee that they are responsible to provide utilities, right? And when they annex land, they have a master plan about, okay, In this city, because it's growing like this, we'll have this many density homes, this many acreage homes, this a hospital, school, this many schools. They have that plan and they mark some of the lands for that, right? That's not a final thing though. You can go in, pick up a land, and make some reasonable arguments about why some other use case would be better, and it goes through approval.
Yeah, and I worked with in the city that I live in, with the mayor and the city councils and the board, planning and zoning boards and all of those people. And with the master plan, I even have my name in there also. So we already, the whole city, we knew that where are we gonna put the park, how many parks we're gonna put, how many schools we're gonna put, how many, so on and so forth. And which area is gonna be industrial, which area is gonna be residential, and so on and so forth.
Right, and some of them can be changed. If you see multifamily approved, you see more new people coming, you can say, hey, now that the interest rates are higher, people are not buying homes. This thing that you have marked for homes, and there is multifamily around, I think making it a multifamily will bring you more taxes, more new people. I'm gonna do it this better, and you make your case, the zoning changes happen.
So this is
Zo-
before you buy, you can go, or you just have to have the land, then you can go? And-
No, you can put the land under contract and go, you can go, just go and inquire with the city, you don't have to own anything.
Yeah, and a lot of times what I do is before I buy the land, I go into the city, in front of the city council, and I say, the address is this. I would like to know if I can do this zoning, XYZ zoning or not.
Right.
And I get the approval. I haven't even bought the land yet.
Right, okay, right.
And I get the approval from the city council. The same day, I go buy me the land. I pay the cash or whatever and buy the land, and I'm done with it. But if you buy the land and then do the zoning, that's risky, very risky actually, because sometimes, some of these city councils, my personal experiences, are racist. So they may look at the Gora and they will approve the zoning, but it's the same Muslim name, and they may not approve it. And I have seen so many things in this whole Texas actually.
Right, so a lot more science is involved, you
Yeah.
understand how the city is, you build relationships, typically, try to get to the mayor, if not, have the right, there are a lot of consultants who will go do it for you. So you have to use the approach, understand a little bit of politics around it. But zoning applies to the in-city lands. There are few jurisdictions to understand. There is a city jurisdiction, there is a school district, right? Those boundaries may be different. And then there is ETJ, extraterrestrial jurisdiction, and then there is county jurisdiction. So in counties, you don't need zoning. It's very flexible, but they are not dense. They don't require as much planning. So as you come closer to the city, into ETJs and in-city lands, that's when planning and zoning comes into effect with more concise reasoning around what you need to do around. So, any questions on this?
I'm sure you know about the Princeton property, I'm an investor too. So in that property, or lots, I think they didn't have anything, but they sold it as a finished product, isn't it?
Yes, and at times it is very serious and could be illegal.
Because they keep changing the maps, they don't know what they're doing.
Can you share more about it, like what happened?
We'll do it afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah, let's finish his,
Yeah.
because we have some other commitments.
Yeah, if all goes well, good, but one have to understand what they're getting into and understand the value transition and invest accordingly. If everything goes well, yeah, it will be good. All right, so we talked about it a little bit as we were talking on other slides. Land parcels, investment type, of course, we have many flavors, which we won't cover, but as you get into it, you will understand. But land parcels, rural county land, that maybe is not restricted to specific zonings and stuff. And you trade as such, depending on what kind of utilities you have, what is the possibility over there. City jurisdiction, again, lands closer to cities, in-city land that are properly zoned by the city, and you need to make sure you get your zoning right if you're thinking of something else on those lands. And on the lands, wherever the lands are, if you have more than 10 acres, mostly in Texas, anywhere in any county, you can apply for ag exempt. So you can have a land in Frisco on Tollway, but it can be ag exempt because you are using it for ag purposes. There are a lot of ways to get ag exempt. It saves a lot more in taxes. When you actually convert it for use, you have to pay 3 years of back taxes. So if you hold a land which is in ag exempt, which is 10 acres or more, for say 7 years, and you convert it and use it in 7th year, you save taxes for 4 years because you paid just 3 years of back taxes, right? And that's a big decision to make. If you're buying a lot of people, hey, I like this corner, this 3-acre corner, which is maybe $30 a foot, which is close to 1.5 million, 1.2 million per acre. You're investing 3.5 million. You don't invest in those kind of properties unless you know what you're doing. You have a development plan, approval from the city the day you close, your construction starts. You even have your renters and tenants before you start. Otherwise, just because the land looks good, right opposite to Disney, this 4-acre land, let's go invest, we all go and invest 4 million. Within 3-4 years, the kind of expenses we have will fail. So when we touch high value lands, use case based lands, we better be ready with all the plans, not just for developing, but also know what we're gonna do. Commercial strips, that's what I'm saying, they don't come under ag exempt. They're usually smaller strips. There is a plan to it. You need to know what it is before you get into it. Otherwise, it quickly takes your money and makes it non-feasible. Improvement projects, of course, we talked about the value transition. Improvement projects are taking any piece of property at one state and taking it to the next stage in improvement and selling it, right? So real estate is not about typically, 20, 30 years back thought is take something, own and feel it. That's still there, but maybe a lot more investment is going to active projects where people take a specific piece of property to next stage of value realization and sell. Income producing properties, of course, multifamily, single family, commercial. Multifamily is very interesting because the trend in last 3-4 years, when multifamily was growing, a lot of investors came in and said, hey, we are buying this old property, we are gonna renovate it and we are gonna sell for it. You pay 50,000, we are gonna give you 80,000 in 3 years. We are gonna do all these wonderful things. It's all good when the values were rising. And typically larger investments, say 100 million property with at 150K a door, you're paying 9% interest rate today. When you started, it was 3 or 4. And these large loans typically don't come fixed for 30 years or 20 years. You have a 3 to 5 years. So a lot of them are going burst because they did their analysis based on 3-4% interest rate, and suddenly it's like 8 or 9%. When you come to refinance, what you're paying to the bank is less than what you're getting in rents. What happens is the first thing that goes out, when it does well, you put 20% in it, the property improves by 50%, your 20% increase by 250%. But if you pay 20% and the property goes down by 20%, it's your first 20% that goes out. So it's a very risky thing unless you know what it is, you understand what it is, what phase of investment is going on, have the value transition. For example, if apartments were selling for in subprime meltdown for 20 to 30,000 a unit. It went up to 50, 80, 100, 150. A Class A apartment can easily sell for 250 to 300,000 a unit right now. If somebody is getting in, looking at the value transaction at 250,000 a unit because somebody told them it's going to be 350 and it goes to 225, you're done.
Does that apply on the land as well?
If you're taking loans and buying at a high price, if you buy a land at low price, it has appreciated, you don't mind paying into it. But if you bought a land at 30,000, it went to 25,000 and you're paying 8% into it, every month you're earning and paying to the land that is undervalued. It may come back later, that's a different story, but when you buy in loans, that's typically a very risky situation.
So based on that assumption, do you think if interest rate remains same or goes up, right? Do you see some lands coming back to the market?
Yes, with the interest rates going up, people who have taken loans, 3 to 5 year loans, especially at the tail end of the market, I think some of those properties will come to the market. How will it translate into real value? We don't know.